Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Can we get serious now?
One thing that did happen during the 60s was some music of an unusual or experimental nature did get recorded and did get released. Now look at who the executives were in those companies at those times. Not hip young guys. These were cigar-chomping old guys who looked at the product that came and said, I don't know. Who knows what it is? Record it, stick it out. If it sells, all right. We were better off with those guys than we are now with the supposedly hip young executives who are making the decisions of what people should see and hear in the marketplace.
Success in the music business begins with a dream, a vision. This podcast will give you, the listener, the insight and tools to turn that vision into a reality. Meet the industry professionals who work day by day behind the scenes, helping to make those dreams come true. Welcome to the business side of music.
Today, from Charlotte, North Carolina, this is going to be an interesting conversation, especially in this climate that so many creatives and musicians are having to deal with, artists are having to deal with these days. Amira Alvarez is on the show with us. Welcome.
Hello. Good to be here.
Glad you could make it. I'm sure it was a long journey from one room to the other, right? Because that's how it is for me.
Exhausting, completely.
Yeah. So you have a company that you are the CEO and founder of called The Unstoppable Woman. I want to start there by what's your background and how did this get started?
So I've always, well, I shouldn't say always because there was a time before I was in business for myself, but I have been very interested in building my own business for quite a while. And I had to learn how to do that, educate myself, start from nothing and kind of go for it. And I think it's a fascinating process. And when I say business, I don't mean just the small business owner with the retail shop. I mean anyone who is out there making money for themselves. So musicians are a perfect category of people who need to figure out the business side, to the point of your podcast and world, the business side of music, right? You're in business for yourself. So right. How do you do that? And I did it fairly successfully, like at a fairly decent rate, if you will, for a while. But there was a time, 4 or 5 years ago where I hit a wall, where there were no more time, there was no more hours in the day, no more time I could put into it and get quantum leap level results. Like I was already doing the hard work, go at it with all I could kind of experience, right? Like I was working the 10 hours, I was working the 12 hours, I was working the 14 hours. Like I couldn't work more to make more money or to achieve the bigger goals that I had that weren't just monetary goals. And so I had to figure out, how did those people over there that had the success that I wanted, right? I can see them, they're examples of them, okay? You open the newspaper, you turn on the TV, like how did they get that high level of success? What's involved in that? And I went at studying success and I realized quite a number of things. And one thing was, you have to be unstoppable. You have to be determined. You have to be persistent. And what I had noticed about myself, if I am perfectly honest, if I go back 5-6 years, I was thrown off course quite a bit. I was hit by temporary defeat, if you will, all the time. And it would throw me off. And I had to learn, quite frankly, the inner game, the mindset piece, the success mindset piece of what it took to be unstoppable in order to really create the level of success that I wanted to in my life and my business.
Was it a course or was it a series of books? Was it an epiphany? But it's easy to say that, but how do you wrap your head around that and implement it?
Absolutely. Such a good question. So it started off with, I would call myself a personal growth junkie, right? Like all my life, not just 5-6 years ago, but I was constantly reading books and trying to absorb, like, how do you get what you want in life, whether that's happiness or freedom or peace or money or whatever it is? How do you get it? And then at some point, I took it a step further and I signed up for programs or courses. And they really helped my mindset, and they really helped me see the things that I wasn't seeing, like levels of awareness and consciousness that I just had no idea about. And then I signed up to work with various different mentors, and I basically drank the Kool-Aid of, if you are going to go for something and you want it to happen quicker than you ever thought possible, go find someone who's actually done it and go work with them. And so I put all of it together. I mean, it wasn't one thing. And by the way, working with a mentor is not a magic bullet, because you still have to do the work, okay?
And you have to find the right mentor.
Correct. You have to find the right mentor. And so I did that. And it's, quite frankly, Bob, it scared the bejeebers out of me, because I invested more money than I was making in a year to work with this person. And, I was scared and excited, but when I signed up, it was not an easy decision. It was absolutely a divine download, intuitive hit. This is an absolute yes. But all the cells in my body were quaking, if you will, and I was in tears, because I was at odds with all my programming that said, that is an unreasonable thing to do. You are putting your family at risk. You shouldn't spend that kind of money on yourself. Spending that kind of money on yourself is completely ridiculous. No, who does that? Don't be a freaking fool. All that story, all that conditioning was coming up and conflicting with that trueness that I felt inside of me. And I'm sure you have a experience of that, where you just know something is right, even though it seems crazy on the surface. That's what it felt like. And I trusted it, and I stepped into it. And it was really like the beginning of me stepping into my greatness. I know that sounds like a lot of frou-frou, or like talking big, but it was the beginning of me really claiming my worth and going after my big goals. And that year, can I talk big? Can I?
Oh, absolutely.
So that year, I was doing okay. I was making 138 when I first started that year. Okay. The end of the last year, I'd made 138, which is not chump change. And I set a big, freaking amazing goal for myself. And that's part of the methodology, if you will, of making $1 million in 1 year. That's a huge leap, Bob. I didn't know how I was going to do it. All I knew was that I wanted to do it, and that it was calling me forward. That year, I 5 times my income, and I went to $700K. I didn't make the $1 million. Okay, let's just call the elephant in the room what the elephant in the room is. And I was a little disappointed about that, let me just tell you. But after a day of being disappointed about that, I was like, oh my God, look at what I just did, right? Like, that's not what most people do. And it was beyond anything I could have conceived of achieving previously. And I really learned, and it's what I teach now, how to collapse time and do what you think is going to take 5 years, 10 years, 20 years in a much shorter amount of time.
And I think that is something that is so relevant to what we're talking about these days, especially with, everybody in our industry. Starving might be a bit rash, but it also might be realistic for quite a few. I have friends on Facebook that we chat back and forth, and they're like, they don't know where their next meal is going to come from right now, because, the bottom has been kicked out from underneath them. That, to me, though, especially with what you're saying, should not be an issue. You have to motivate yourself. Look, none of us saw this coming. None of us saw this happening. None of us expected it to be what it is, especially where we're all at now. But wouldn't you agree that now is the right time to do something about it? And I've said this before, taking your career to the next level. What you've described is you went from 138 to basically 7 times that amount, close to that, in a year. And that's, once again, that's not chump change. And that's you applying yourself, trying to get something accomplished. You set a goal, right?
Yeah. So there's 2 things I want to say here. One, I want to give people the key, if you will. Okay. Like, here's how it works. You have to decide what you want. Okay. Here you are. The bottom's fallen out. The industry's totally changed. What the heck? You have to decide right now what you want. And that has to be a desire that is driven by, quite frankly, what you want, not what's reasonable, practical, or fear-driven. Okay? Not what you think you could do, but what you really want. Now, your desire doesn't have to be, it absolutely does not have to be the $1 million. Take that off the table. Okay? If it is yours, don't take it off the table. But if it isn't, take it off the table. Tell me what you really want. Do you just want to make $1,000 this month? Do you just want to make $5,000 this month? Like, what would be a freaking win for you that seems impossible right now? Like, you don't actually know how it's going to happen. Okay. That's what you need to choose first. And you make a decision with that. Now, I teach something called the freedom equation. You need to know where you are now. You need to know where you want to go. Okay. Both of those things. And then you have to chart a plan to get there. Now, the plan usually is quite simple, but people are blocked from seeing it. But once they decide, I am doing this, then the plan comes in. Now, can I give you one more piece on this?
Yep, please do.
Okay, so let's look at urgency, because that is a key piece that's part of the puzzle. So let's take it out of the money, your monthly money, like just income on a regular basis perspective. And let's say you have a child or your partner's kidnapped, okay? And someone calls you up and says, I've kidnapped your daughter, or I've kidnapped your wife, or I've kidnapped your husband, and you need to bring me $100,000 by 2 p.m. tomorrow, or I'm going to kill them. Now, this is a dramatic example, okay?
Right.
But you would move mountains to figure out how to get that money. There would be nothing that would stop you. You would be unstoppable. You would be determined. You wouldn't stop at the first no that you got. If Uncle Joe only has $2,000, you thank them for it, and then you go to Susie, and then you go to Bill, and then you go to the banker, and then you do this, and then you do this, and you would be activated because you had some urgency. You really wanted it. Okay, now let's take that and translate that to someone's monthly income or annual income. They don't have the urgency behind it. Otherwise, they would be doing all that they could to make it happen. And you have to ask yourself, well, I consciously want more money, or I consciously want that gold record or platinum record or whatever the thing is that you're going for, or I consciously want to play with this musician or in this band or tour here, right? Like whatever the goal is, I consciously want that. But why am I not doing the things that are required to get there? And it's a matter of urgency. And underneath that, the reason you don't have that urgency is you have subconscious conditioning, programming, a belief system that says, that's not who you are. I'm not someone who does that. Okay?
Right. We're going to take a break, and then when we come back, I want to talk about how this can apply to a musician who's had their live performances and their events and everything, like I said earlier, the feet kicked out from underneath them. And let's dig a little deeper into that. Coming live from Charlotte, North Carolina, Amira Alvarez. You're listening to this edition of...
Hey everybody, this is Heidi Newfield, and you are listening to The Business Side of Music.
You're listening to The Business Side of Music.
Hi everyone, I'm Larry Butler, and I want to send you a free digital copy of my new book, The Singer-Songwriter Rulebook, 101 Ways to Help You Improve Your Chances of Success. That's right. Everything you need to know to launch your career as a singer-songwriter, all based on my 40 years in the live performance arena, and believe me, I've seen it all. In my book, you'll find the 10 things you have to deal with before even thinking about becoming a singer-songwriter performer. You'll also learn about the 5 things every singer-songwriter can do this weekend to make their live show better. 5 things I can guarantee that you are not doing already. Plus, there's tips on songwriting and staging, photo and video shoots, publishing, merch, dozens of other topics. All written for people who don't particularly like to read. And again, it's free. Just go to the Business Side of Music website homepage and look for my book cover. Click on it, and a free digital copy of my book will be yours. I'm Larry Butler, and I approve of this message. Thanks.
Are you curious about Gordon Lightfoot's songwriting process, or what it was like working with Prince in the 80s? Have you ever given any thought to what goes into a golf course design or writing a book? I'm Steve Waxman, the host of The Creationist, a podcast about people who create. Each episode features a different creator sharing stories that I hope will inspire your own creativity. The Creationist is available now on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
You're listening to the business side of music.
Tune back in. Another episode, long distance quarantine special of the business side of music. Amira Alvarez, who is the CEO and founder of The Unstoppable Woman, is with us today. You're, to a certain extent, I'm going to say, you're a motivated type person. You're kind of that cheerleader that a lot of us need right now. You have that artist, that musician. If you come to Nashville right now, we're known as Music City. And you go down Lower Broadway and there's every honky-tonkin' bar, and music starts about 10 in the morning and it runs to about 3 o'clock the next morning. It's a ghost town right now. How do you tell a musician that, how can they apply this? Like I said, now that their performances and, they can't get in the studio and record, how does this apply to them? How can they make it work?
Absolutely. So we want to understand how we get the results that we want to get and what the methodology is for that. Most people look at the outside world and outside circumstances, and we let that dictate what we do, how we think about the situation. So the outside circumstances right now are COVID-19, things are shut down, there's no gigs, it's for the foreseeable future. And if we let that, as a musician, if you let that dictate what you see as possible, you will not see any opportunity in the situation. It will limit your field of view, if you will. Okay. Now, we don't want to be an ostrich with our head in the sand and somehow think magically and it's not happening. It's happening. Okay. We don't want to. This is not about magical thinking. Instead, we want to understand how creation works, how we get the result or achieve the goal that we want. And it starts first by getting very clear about what the goal is that you want. So for the musician, is it, I want to be playing music? Is it that I want to be making music? What is it that they want to be doing? Is it that I want to be making money? I want to be making money playing music. Get very clear about what you want. And if it is around the finances, then you want to get clear about how much you both need and want, okay? And so it is really, pick that number. Tell me what you want right now. And you have to believe you can get it. If you're making zero and you tell me you want to make $1 billion, I'm going to say, that's great. Let's do a heck of a lot of work to get there, okay? But if you're saying, right now my income has dropped to zero and I'd like to get it to, 3 or 4K this month or something in that range, right? Or maybe it's 10K or 20K or whatever it is, but whatever is within your scope, then pick that goal and then really keep that crystal clear in your mind. You're going to use your will and your imagination. So your will is you're going to keep repeating to yourself and seeing over and over again that this is what you're going for, this is what you want, and then you're going to use your imagination. Take a walk with the dog, sit playing guitar at home and let your mind wander around how might that happen right now, okay? Because when you decide you want something and you set the power of your imagination towards it, you will come up with creative ideas to solve that problem. So right now, most people are probably seeing creative ideas, but their energy is such that they're like, why should I bother? But if you really want to make money right now, own that And then imagine yourself making that money. What would you have to do in order to create that? And let the ideas come and then act on them as quickly as possible.
From what I'm understanding, a lot of it's mindset. A lot of it is just wrapping your head around the reality, trying to figure out how to make things work in spite of itself and get out there, even though it's in a virtual environment. You have so many artists that, okay, I'm stuck in my living room. I'm going to do a living room concert. I'm going to play some music. Here's my tip jar. And that's not working because everybody is doing that. On top of that, it's just after a while, they're all playing the same songs and they're all, basically asking for $4 or $5 or $10 or whatever it is. And everybody's kind of in the same situation. They don't have the financial resources to support everybody, let alone their own artist. What do they do?
Well, I would get super, super creative. I mean, the things that start popping in my mind are, there are patrons out there. And I know that there's a whole patron kind of website for it. But who do you know that loves music, that loves to support music and wants to support you? And you have to get beyond your conditioning that says you can't ask, or you can't talk to people you don't know, or you can't reach out to Bill Gates, or you can't reach out to Beyonce, or you can't reach out to, but there are tons of people in this world who are extraordinarily wealthy. How can you do something so magnificent for them that they will want to support you?
It's really, we talked about this on another episode, it's really rising above that noise and that clutter that's out there. I just said it a few minutes ago. There's so many other artists out there that are performing these living room concerts, and I'm not knocking it. I think from a creative standpoint, from a creative aspect, it is a good thing to be doing. I think it keeps your mind sane, but you have to make money. And so you really have to rise above that, what everybody else is not doing, and find that creative way to, as you said, get to that patron, get to that sponsor. And what do you have to offer them to make this happen?
Yes. Just to be a little bit more specific with what I was suggesting, what came to me, is there is a law of compensation. And it says that the first law of receiving is giving. Okay? It starts with giving. So if you're going to go reach out to someone you've never met, you don't have a relationship with, you have no contact with, don't come with your hat in your hand, okay? Saying, I need you to give me this thing. Start with, I want to make your life better. Here's how I can do it, okay? Here's my gift to you. You have created so much in my life. I wanted to use this time to give you something, and just do that and see what happens, whether there's a conversation there. Yes, it's going to require persistence. Maybe you have to figure out how to get to the person. Maybe there's a publicist in between you and that person. There's, people have, gatekeepers, all of that. This could be something you do for all your friends and family and have them send it out in a email versus on YouTube, right? There's all sorts of ways that you can give and serve in this world, and you will be compensated as a result of that. Maybe indirectly, but you will. And asking doesn't hurt.
I'm in a group here in Nashville, and they're actually all over the world, but it's a private group. It's by invitation only. It's called Dinner with Dreamers. And it was started by a gentleman by the name of Kyle Sailors. He and his brother Kenny are film producers. And he has always said that they don't do this to make money. They do this to build relationships and get you in front of people and just have a conversation, because you never know where that conversation's going to go. You might be sitting next to someone at a dinner and pass a business card, and the next day you may get a phone call from them and they go, I love your idea. Let's talk about it and let's see if we can take it a step further. You're basically saying the same thing. You got to get out there and reach people and let them know what you're willing to do for them. You have no idea what's going to come in return.
Absolutely. So here's the thing about money. This is a little woo-woo. Go with me here, okay? But money comes from the universe, from infinite potential, from spirit source, whatever you want to call that. And it's constantly expanding. There's more money in circulation right now than there's ever been before in the history of mankind, okay? And even with this downturn, there's more money in circulation. But here's the thing, and it's an ever expanding amount because we live in an expanding universe. But the thing is that money comes from spirit, source, the universe, whatever you want to call that, through people, through sales, okay? So you have to get good at both of those things. You have to get good with your relationships with people because money is a resource that moves through people. It doesn't belong to anyone. It moves through people, okay? Not from someone. You can't take it from them.
Right.
It's moving through them. And you have to get good. So you have to get good with people, and then you have to get really good with the idea of sales. And most people, and I know artists have a bit of this psychology, they have, there's I don't want to be salesy. I don't want to be manipulative. I don't want to ask for money. I just want it to drop from the sky. Well, guess what? You have to get good with selling yourself, whether it's to a producer or to someone in the band or to someone at dinner. And it's super important, super important.
It's all about relationships. At least that's my opinion. It's all about relationships, but the first relationship has to be with you. You have to be able to sell yourself before you can sell anybody else. Yeah,
and you have to sell yourself on yourself. You have to think that you have something extraordinarily valuable and of extraordinary service that's going to help other people, that's amazing, in order to be compensated in a really flush kind of way. I don't know what, in the way that you want.
We're going to take another break, get a word in for one of our other sponsors. And when we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with Amira Alvarez, who is the founder and the CEO of The Unstoppable Woman.
This is Claire Ratliff with Laughing Penguin Publicity, and you're listening to the business side of music.
You're listening to the business side of music.
My name is Garrett Hope. I am a composer, coach, podcaster, and speaker. I've been focused on building my music business since the early 2000s and helping others build their music businesses since 2015. I want to tell you about a free event I'm organizing for January. It's called the Ultimate Music Business Summit. It'll take place January 7, 8, and 9. Here's the deal. Through the summit, I want to help you build your own stimulus package for 2021. There will be over 21 teachers giving over 21 high-leverage business lessons you can use in your music business immediately so you can make 2021 the best year for your music ever. If you want to make more money with your music, grow your audience, or impact more people, this summit is for you. More than that, there will be a few live panel discussions so we can discuss this in real time. It's going to be amazing. And yes, it's free. This summit will give you real-world, not theoretical, strategies you can implement immediately. I promise you, with all the teachers lined up, you'll get something you've never thought of before. Even though building a business is hard, and trust me, no one is promising it's easy, it is possible. You just need the right tools and strategies. Get your free ticket today and reserve your spot in the summit. Build your own stimulus package for 2021. I look forward to seeing you at the summit. Go to musicsummit.biz, that's musicsummit.biz, to get your ticket today.
You're listening to the business side of music.
Back in the studio, Amira Alvarez is with us, founder and CEO of The Unstoppable Woman. You sent me a list of topics that we could discuss, and we've kind of been all over the place with this thing, which to me is fine. It's great. I'm enjoying it. But one of the things that we talked about was, how does that artist, how does that creative person, how do they recognize their own blocks? You talk about moving taking the most essential needle-moving action. So is that first step they got to take? Are you saying they need to get out of their way? What is that?
So when I work with someone, I'm looking at where they are now and where they want to go. Okay, and that's very individual for each artist, each person.
It's not a cookie-cutter template.
It's not. It absolutely isn't. But there are things that are similar that people will have to do. So one of the things that has to happen is we have to chart a plan from here to there. Those things will be unique to that particular goal. Like, what does that person want to do? It's going to be different for, this artist versus this artist. They have different goals in mind, okay? But once we have that plan mapped out, then we have to see what's getting in your way. Like, people get in their own way. And you said something earlier, is this really about mindset? And I will tell you that it's 80% inner game. It's like figuring out what those blind spots are, those things that you can't see for yourself that are consistently getting in your way and creating patterns of self-sabotage. And then 20% is that execution of the plan. The actual tactical things that you have to do, not that complicated. But the moving through the blocks, that can feel like you're just swimming upstream and a huge mountain is in your way. And so the way that I help people, and people can do this on their own as well, okay? I want them to have these nuggets right now. But the way that I really help people see if they're actually doing the needle-moving actions, and those needle-moving actions are the things that they have to do to get from where they are now to where they want to be. We covered some of them today, sales, relationships, things like that, but it's different for each person. Once that's clear, you have to look at your results. Are you getting the results that you want right now? Okay, because what happens as human beings is we come up with all sorts of stories. I'm being nice by calling them stories, but they're really excuses or alibis for why we haven't done what we said we were going to do, why we haven't gotten the results that we wanted. The economy, the COVID-19, my sister-in-law's wedding, my parents got sick, my dog needs an operation, whatever it is. Life is real. It has all these things. I'm not saying that these things aren't real. They are very real, but they become alibis for not getting the results that you want. So I always ask people to look at their results. Are you getting the results that you want? That's a key way of knowing if you are in self-sabotage. And then the second thing is you want to notice what you're resisting, where you're saying, I can't do that because of this, or I don't want to do that. Maybe it's picking up the phone and calling that producer that's your brother-in-law's best friend that you have a 5% relationship with, but you don't really have a solid foundation with, right? And you're resisting that.
So we always hear about this thing, it's the 7 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon.
Yeah.
We all have, whether we realize it or not, we all pretty much, if we're in this business, if we're in this industry, we all have that 7 degrees of separation there somewhere. We should utilize those resources no matter how far distant they are.
Absolutely. And then you have to ask yourself, why aren't you? What's stopping you? What's that resistance? And usually it's this underlining blind spot, some conditioning from childhood, quite frankly, that's saying it's not all right for you to do that. You are going to lose something, fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of someone not liking you, fear of being too pushy, whatever you want to call that keeps you small. But guess what? You're not going to get what you want if you stay trapped by those mindsets.
Would it also be correct in assuming that you should work to try and please yourself before you please other people?
Yes. And I say that with caveats because I think people misunderstand it quite a lot. But the idea here is if you are selfish, meaning if you put yourself first, i.e. put your oxygen mask on first, if you're taking care of yourself first, you will take care of all the people around you. And yet most of us think if I dedicate this amount of time to my business and I'm not going to be there for my daughter or my son or my wife, that's being that's putting myself selfishly first in a negative way. Well, what's the truth there? If you put yourself first there and you live your passion and you go do what you need to do in a way that's really going after your goals and dreams, how does that have a positive follow-on effect to the people around you? You have to look at that.
Yeah, and you do. That's where some introspective you have to look inside of yourself and figure out what's right, what is the right thing to do, what's good, and what's the benefit. So what you're saying, there's a lot of soul searching going on here.
Absolutely. There's soul searching, and then there's education. I think that to circle back to something that you said earlier in interview, in the questioning, what did you actually do to change your mindset and have a success mindset so that you could take these actions and create the results you wanted? One of the things that I did was I studied a book, and several books. I want to give you a specific one, though, which is called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I've studied that every single day, and I have a free, no-charge program on that called the Morning Mindset Club, where I take people through it almost line by line and help them use the material there to think differently. And I had to really train myself to think differently and approach life differently. And I would encourage everyone to go study that book themselves. Ask me how to get access to that. I'm happy to share it with your audience. But it's a huge fundamental key piece that is so important to do on a regular basis, really changing and morphing how you look at the world.
One of the things we touched briefly on, I want to dig in a little more, is that freedom equation that we just really kind of skipped across the top of the pond on that one. Can we dig a little deeper on that?
Yeah, absolutely. It isn't complicated. It's pretty simple until you try and apply it to your life, okay? That's where the rubber meets the road.
Right.
First thing you need to know is, where are you now? Tell me exactly where you are. And a lot of people want to exaggerate that, and a lot of people want to denigrate themselves. So you got to get really honest and be like, this is exactly where I am. Now, money is great from that perspective because it's countable, so we can give a very accurate assessment. I make $50K a year, I make $35K a year, I make $100K a year, I make $2 million a year. We know exactly where we're at. That's not always the litmus test, if you will. If you have a different scale that you want to use that. I've produced 3 records, or I've played on, you figure out what your metric is and we'll use that, okay? But where are you right now? And then where do you want to be? Okay, we can't chart a map, a plan, unless we know those 2 places. It's like being in your car and not giving your GPS a destination. We need to set the destination. So that comes from choosing what you really want. Most people have a hard time owning their true desires. What do you really want? They go for something smaller than what they really want, and then they don't get what they really want, okay? So we have to, again, honestly say, actually, what I really want is this, and it means this to me. It actually has an emotional, meaningful reason that I'm going for it, okay? You have to really want it. It has to be passionate, okay? Then we're going to look and we're going to chart that course between where you are now and where you want to be. That's a plan, okay? You need a good, accurate plan. You don't need to have every little step worked out, and most people do this backwards. They say, I need the plan before I can choose what I want, because I have to see that I can get there, because I don't want to be disappointed in myself if I can't figure it out. It's backwards. You have to know where you're going first. Otherwise, you can't create the plan.
Right.
Okay. So those are step 1, 2, and 3 of the freedom equation. Where you are now, where you want to be, chart the course. Okay. In that order. Then we have to bring truth to the equation, because most people at that point are usually really excited to have a plan, but then and they start executing on it. There's some momentum that feels really good, but then they hit a wall. And that's where we have to bring truth to the equation. And the way I do that, people do it in a lot of different ways, but the way I do it is I help people unpack their blind spots. We talked about that already. Looking at the conditioning that has them, looking at the world with blinders on, okay, not seeing a bigger picture. And also bringing what I call universal truth or universal law to the situation. And these are the natural laws that help people understand intellectually how everything works. And to be honest, Bob, learning these is what broke everything open for me. Let me say that differently. Learning them and then applying them, holding myself to a higher standard and not just saying, oh, yeah, I know this, but like really seeing the next level of application for these is what blew everything open for me. And then you have to act from that place of truth.
But I like what you said. You have to set a goal before you put the plan in place because you don't know what the plan is. And I think a lot of artists, and once again, I'm not degrading them, I'm not picking on them, but the ones that go and they play a bar every night and they're playing the same cover songs, they're playing in front of the same people, and then they go, nothing's happening with my career. Oh, woe is me. Well, it's because if that's your plan, that's where you're going to be for the next whatever. You have to set your sights. Now, I am going to say they do need to be realistic to a certain extent. I think, does it make sense to set different goals, stair-step those goals, or do you just go for the gusto and say, this is what I'm going to do?
Yes and yes. So you want to set a goal that is truly your desire. It has to be so exciting for you that you get emotionally involved in it, and you will do whatever it takes to make that happen within ethics, right? I'm not asking you to kill someone or something like that. But like I said, when we talked about urgency, it has to be so exciting to you that you will do whatever it takes. So yes, you need a big, juicy goal that scares the pants off of you and makes you go, how the heck am I going to do that? Now, the rub is the time period for which it happens. And this is one of those things that we don't know the answer to. So desires, goals, those are spiritual seeds, okay? They get planted and they grow into something real that is in the physical 3D world, manifested, created, but we don't know the time period for that. With a seed for carrots or corn or whatever, we know in this region, with this kind of weather, in this kind of soil, it's going to take 68 days for that to go from seed to carrot, if you will. We don't know that with a spiritual seed, which is what an idea is. And so that's the law of gestation. We don't know how long that gestation period is. Does that mean you give up the ghost, give up the desire? No, that's where the unstoppable part comes in. You have to keep that clear goal so emotionally present for yourself and actively moving towards it that you end up closing the gap on time or collapsing time, if you will. And that's how you work with the law of gestation. Did that make sense?
Oh, that actually makes great sense. Yeah. Hey, I finally get it. That's good.
That's awesome.
How can people find you?
The best place to find us is to go to theunstoppablewoman.com/free stuff. And on that page, there's a ton of free resources, including the Mindset Club that I mentioned earlier. That is actually, right now, we're doing it as a totally free program. It's something that we've normally charge $2,000, $3,000 for, and people can get it for free. I really encourage those of you, your audience, who are resonating with this. If there's something in something that I said that got them thinking, well, maybe I need to do it differently. I'm actually not getting the results I want. How would I do it differently? And you want to start working with your mindset. That is a beautiful place to start working with your mindset. And I'd love for your audience to take advantage of that. It's really a stupendous program.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for being on the show.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me. This was so much fun, Bob. I loved your questions.
The Business Side of Music is the creation of Tom Sabella and Tracy Snow and is produced by Bob Bender. The Business Side of Music is recorded at Music Dog Studios in Nashville, Tennessee. Production sound design by Keith Stark. Voiceover and promo by Lisa Busan.
Tomorrow's a daydream, yesterday's dust. Life's about now, it's all that I've got. got to strike while the iron is hot. And everybody thinks I'm crazy. I don't really know, but baby, I believe in this wicked sweet love somehow. Anyway, we're happy, and anyway, life's about now. Life's about now. Life's about now. Gonna dance while we can. Move to the beat, cause we both understand that life's about now. You get what you get. Live for the moment. Have no regrets. And everybody thinks we're crazy. We don't really care, but baby, we believe in this wicked sweet love somehow. And anyway, it works for us. And anyway, life's about now. Life's about now. Don't you wait. Give it up. Let it go. Don't be late. Cause life's about now. We're taking a stand. Keep your birds in the bush. We got one in our hand. Life's about now. No guarantees. Thought by tomorrow, sad as it seems. Life's about now. Life's about now. Life's about now. So sweet life. Oh yeah, life's about now. Life's about now. Life's about. Life's about. Life's right now.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.